Success doesn't hide. It leaves behind a trail of habits, disciplines, principles, and actions. If you were to observe a successful person closely, you'd see patterns. Not miracles, you'd see structure, not luck. Success is not a mystery, it's a method. And that method, fortunately, leaves clues for those who are willing to slow down, pay attention, and learn. But here's the tragedy: most people ignore those clues. They're in too much of a hurry to chase something new, something shiny. They'd rather search for secrets than study the obvious. They want hacks instead of habits, results without routines. So while the clues are right there, in the books, in the biographies, in the interviews, in the footprints of those who've already succeeded, they're left untouched. Those who truly succeed are not guessers. They're observers. They learn from other people's victories, and just as importantly, from their failures. They read, they listen, they ask, they watch, they model. Because they understand that life is too short to make every mistake yourself. Someone's already made it for you, and they left behind the lesson. Now let me tell you, the clues may be simple, but they're never easy. Wake up early, be consistent, take responsibility. Delay gratification, serve others, set goals. These are not secrets, they're clues, repeated over and over by people who made something of their lives. But because they're not dramatic, most people overlook them. So the challenge is clear: don't be like most people. Don't walk past the clues. Don't cover your ears when wisdom speaks. Start where others have succeeded. Trace the steps. Build your plan on proven ground. Because success leaves clues, and the smart ones follow them. Most people today are rushing to the head to get rich, rushing to make it, without building it. And in that rush, they miss the obvious. You see, the path to success is not hidden. It's right there in front of us, plain as day. The steps have already been taken. The model's already lived. But most people are so focused on shortcuts that leads you. They walk right past the map that would lead them exactly where they wanted to go. You've probably heard it at there's got to be an easier way. That's the cry of the shortcut seeker. They're looking for the magic button, the instant win, the elevator ride to the top floor of life. But life doesn't work like that, especially not success. Success doesn't reward the lazy mind. It rewards the diligent eye, the one who observes, the one who's willing to walk, not sprint. And here's the irony: the proven steps are always visible. You can see them in every successful person you meet or study. You'll find routines, disciplines, values, and actions they've repeated for years. You'll find that none of them skipped the work. They just became masterful at doing the work consistently. But to see that truth, you have to stop searching for a shortcut and start learning from a blueprint. The tragedy is that most people want transformation without process. But process is the price. And if you ignore that, you ignore the very thing that creates change. The shortcut mentality is what keeps people stuck, trying everything, finishing nothing, and wondering why life stays the same. So here's the invitation: slow down and study. Forget. Focus on steps. Because success is generous. It leaves clues. But those clues won't scream at you. You have to quiet the noise, remove the ego, and be willing to learn. That's when the path begins to appear. Every person who has achieved things extraordinary didn't start in the dark. They studied someone. They followed someone. They listened to mentors, read books, watched behaviors, and absorbed lessons like a sponge. They understood early that success isn't built from scratch. It's modeled. It's borrowed from the greats, refined through personal effort that leads you, and multiplied through consistency. Success is not an isolated experience. It's a continuation. One generation hands the torch to the next, not through inheritance, but through wisdom. The habits that built one empire can build another. The mindset that shaped one leader can shape another. It's all there in plain sight, if we're willing to pay attention. But here's the challenging: most people believe they have to figure it out on their own. They think that looking to others makes them weak or unoriginal. Not true. It makes you wise. It makes you efficient. The light that leads you, learning from someone who's already walked the road, means you don't have to fall into every ditch they did. Their experience becomes foundation if you let it. And don't think this is just about copying steps. No, it's about understanding patterns. It's about noticing what successful people consistently do, how they think plan, how they adjust, how they stay grounded. Those clues are the compass that can guide your own journey without you having to stumble blindly in the dark. The light that leads you. So if you want to grow, study someone who's already grown. If you want to lead, follow someone who's already led. That leads you. The clues are there, in their story, in their habits, in their principles. But only those who are humble enough to learn will ever benefit from them. It's a funny thing about success. The steps are often simple. Wake up early. Show up every day. Keep your promises. Invest in yourself. Stay consistent. These aren't secrets. These are basics. Yet most people shrug them off, thinking, it can't be that simple. But that's exactly why so many stay stuck. They ignore the basics because they don't look impressive. They don't sparkle. But what's easy to do is also easy not to do. And over time, that makes all the difference. You see, people want fireworks, something dramatic, something revolutionary. They want a system that changes everything overnight. But success doesn't come in explosions. It comes in inches. It comes in small, disciplined acts done daily. And because it looks ordinary, people pass right over it. They don't realize the power of repetition. They don't understand that excellence is built quietly, not loudly. That's why these clues go unnoticed. They're hidden in plain sight. You hear the same principles repeated by every successful person you study. But instead of leaning in and applying them, most people tune out. Leads you. They're waiting for something new, something fresh, something they've never heard before. But success doesn't live in the new. It lives in the true. The clues are simple, yes, but that doesn't mean they're easy. It takes strength to be consistent. It takes maturity to be patient. It takes discipline to choose what's right over what's easy. And most people don't want that kind of burden. They want ease without effort, reward without responsibility. And in doing so, they skip the very steps that would have changed their lives. So remember this: the simplicity of the clue doesn't reduce its power. In fact, that's where the power is. If you'll respect the small will grow. If you'll follow the simple will reward you. But first, you have to stop ignoring what actually works and start doing it. Discipline, consistency, and daily action, that's the golden trio. You want to know the real secret behind success? It's not some genius level IQ. It's not luck or connections. It's these three, day in, day out. You see, most people are waiting for the mood to strike before they act. But successful people, they act whether they feel like it or not. Discipline means you don't negotiate with your feelings. You honor your commitment. Consistency is where the power multiplies. Anyone can be disciplined for a day, maybe even a week. But can you show up when it's boring, when it's hard, when no one's clapping for you? That's what separates the ones who wish from the ones who win. Because repetition builds momentum, and momentum creates mastery. And let me tell you, consistency is what builds a reputation in business, in health, in relationships. And then there's daily action, the smallest unit of progress. It's not about giant leaps. It's about faithful steps. Success isn't built in a weekend. It's built in quiet mornings and late nights with a routine that looks ordinary but compounds over time. It's reading one chapter, making one call, showing up one more day. That's how success is really built. Now here's the catch: most people want intensity, but not consistency. They want to go all in for 2 weeks and see results. But success isn't an event, it's a lifestyle. It's what you do repeatedly that defines your future. You don't have to be extreme, you just have to be steady. One disciplined action done consistently will take you further than any burst of motivation ever will. So if you're looking for the thread that runs through every great success story, don't look for drama, look for discipline. Look for the boring habits. Look for the person who just keeps showing up. Because in the end, success isn't owned, it's rented. And the rent is due every single day. Opportunity knocks more often than people think, but it doesn't always wear a name tag. Sometimes it shows up dressed as hard work. Sometimes it looks like a book, a conversation, or a challenge. And the reason most people miss it isn't because it's not there. It's because they're not looking. You see, the world isn't short on opportunity. What it's short on is people who are truly awake, aware, and ready to grow. The problem is, many folks are waiting for opportunity to look like a winning lottery ticket. They want it to be obvious, easy, and guaranteed. But that's not how life works. Opportunity usually shows up quietly, and it only reveals itself to the person who's paying attention. That takes awareness. You've got to train your eyes to see value in the small, and train your mind to learn from everything. And willingness to learn, that's the real key. Because even if opportunity does appear, if you're not teachable, it'll pass you by. Life is a classroom, but not everyone's willing to be a student. Ego gets in the way. Pride says, I already know this. But growth begins where ego ends. The people who succeed are the ones who ask questions, take notes, and stay curious long after others have stopped learning. You'll notice that the most successful people never stop learning. They're always sharpening the axe. They read, they listen, they invest in themselves. Why? Because they know opportunity rewards the prepared mind. And preparation doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you stay open, stay humble, and stay hungry. So if you think life hasn't given you a fair shot, take a step back. Maybe the problem isn't a lack of opportunity. Maybe it's a lack of readiness. Open your eyes, open your ears, open your mind. Because when you're aware and willing to learn, you'll start seeing opportunities that were there all along. If you're serious, and I mean truly serious, about changing your life, then stop guessing. Start studying. Success doesn't require you to invent something brand new. It asks you to observe what's already been proven. The road has already been paved by those who've gone before you. Their wins, their failures, their lessons, they've left behind a roadmap. The only question is, will you follow it? Too many people are trying to reinvent the wheel. They waste time, energy, and years of life trying to figure it all out on their own, while the answers are sitting in books, interviews, courses, biographies, and mentorships. That's pride disguised as independence. And let me tell you, pride will bankrupt your future if you let it lead your learning. The smart ones, they humble themselves enough to learn from those who've already walked the path. When you study someone who's done it, and done it well, you compress time. What took them 10 years to learn, you can understand in 10 weeks. Their scars become your shields. Their mistakes become your guidance. Their mindset becomes your foundation. That's not cheating. That's wisdom. That's leverage. And that's how winners win faster. Now, here's where the real shift happens. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what did they do? You stop looking for random advice and start following a proven example. Because when someone has already reached the place you want to go, their life becomes more than just a story. It becomes a strategy. So don't just admire success, study it. Don't just applaud the winners, model them. Their path is your blueprint, but blueprints don't build houses by themselves. You've got to pick up the tools, follow the steps, and start building. And if you stay faithful to the process, one day someone will be studying you. Imagine trying to bake a cake without a recipe. You've got all the ingredients, but no instructions, so you guess a little of this, a pinch of that, toss it in the oven, and hope for the best. Now, what are the odds that cake turns out right? Slim to none, and yet that's how most people approach success. They guess. They hope. They throw effort at life without any clear formula, ignoring the very clues that could have guided them. See, success, like baking, requires a recipe. It demands that you follow steps in order with the right amounts and the right timing. Skip the preparation. Your foundation collapses. Leave something out. The result doesn't rise. Try to rush the process. You burn the whole thing. But when you follow the proven recipe, with patience, care, and consistency, success becomes not just possible, but predictable. The tragedy is the recipe exists. It's written in books, spoken in seminars, lived out in the habits of those who've already done what you want to do. It's not hidden, it's just ignored. And why? Because most people are looking for flavor without effort. They want the sweetness of success without following the instructions. They think they can wing it and still win. But let me remind you, mastery is in the method. You can have all the right intentions, but without structure, your results will always fall flat. Success leaves clues, just like a recipe. The only question is, are you disciplined enough to follow the steps? So don't guess when others have already measured. Don't improvise when the instructions are available. Pick up the recipe for success, follow it faithfully, and watch your life rise. Because in the end, success is less about magic and more about method that leads you. If people who pay attention to the clues rise faster, not because they're smarter, not because they're luckier, but because they're willing to observe. Life is constantly dropping hints, and success doesn't hide its patterns. If you're sharp enough to notice what works, in business, in relationships, in personal growth, you gain an advantage. You get to skip the detours others take because they weren't paying attention. You move with clarity while others move with confusion. You see, the person who stumbles less isn't necessarily stronger. They're just more prepared. They've studied the ground before walking on it. They've watched others trip and learned from it. They've asked the right questions, read the right books, listen to the right voices. That awareness becomes a shield, a way to protect their time, energy, and focus from unnecessary setbacks. That leads you. Most people waste years chasing what doesn't work, simply because they never stop to ask, has this worked for anyone else? But the wise ones, the learners, they move with intention. They watch for the signs that leads you. They measure what's effective. They don't have to touch the fire to believe it burns. They learn by observation. And that's how they avoid repeating mistakes that others have already made for them. The beautiful part. Every clue you catch saves you time. It saves you pain. It saves you from going down roads that lead to regret. Why try to figure out everything on your own when others have already left the answers behind? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's leverage. So if you want to rise faster and stumble less, start paying attention. Watch closely. Take notes. Learn quickly. Because success leaves footprints. And the sooner you start walking in them, the sooner you start creating your own. If you want to change your life, stop guessing. Start observing the ones who've already built the life you want. That's not imitation, that's intelligence. Guessing is expensive. It costs you time, energy, and momentum. Leads you. Why spend years figuring it out from scratch when someone else has already drawn the map? Success doesn't require reinvention. It requires observation, humility, and the discipline to follow through. Find someone who has what you want. Not just the results, but the character behind the results. Look at how they live, how they think, how they talk, how they spend their time. Patterns will begin to emerge. You'll notice they read when others scroll. They plan when others wish. They show up when others sleep in. These aren't coincidences. They're clues. And when you pay attention, you begin to understand that success is not magical, it's methodical. But here's the catch. Observation alone isn't enough. You must also apply what you see. Too many people admire successful lives like museum pieces from a distance, behind glass, never daring to touch or recreate it. That's not how change happens. You have to study with the intention to implement. Learn the principles, then put them to work. Because observation without action is just entertainment. And don't just look at what people do. Look at what they avoid that leads you, the distractions they cut out, the excuses they refuse, the emotional control they maintain. Often, what someone says no to is more powerful than what they say yes to. Success is just as much about subtraction as it is about addition. So stop trying to figure it all out on your own. Life leaves tracks. Wisdom leaves clues. And the footsteps of greatness are all around you. If you're wise enough to stop guessing, start observing, and begin applying.